Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked. Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free. Count it all joy, Charles is back online. The Equally Yoked Show. Get yoked for free.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Equally Yoked Show, and we are getting started with yet another crazy day of so much happening with the government shutdown, with the Netflix, all this stuff, and people are absolutely going mad. So what do we have to say about all of this stuff? Well, we're going to be breaking down some of this stuff as we go on. Of course, I do want to mention that we can definitely talk about whatever it is that you guys have comments on, questions on in the chat. But otherwise, I'm thrilled to have you join me yet again for another packed live show. So if this is your first time here, this is a place where we can have open debate and dialogue to agree or disagree. Feel free to do so in the chat. And of course, super chats are most certainly welcomed, and they will be read in a priority basis. So for those of you who most certainly disagree, if you want your super chat to be read, or your message to be read, it's always good to do a super chat if you want to. Not necessary. However, I will most likely try to go through the comments as best as possible. However, there are times where I do get lost in the comments because there's something that I'm commenting on for a little while. However, there's a lot of things that we need to go over when it comes to everything that is going down. So I want to know you guys' thoughts right away, right off the bat, so we can talk about this just a little bit more. And that is with regards to the government shutdown. Tell me what your guys' thoughts are when it comes to the government shutdown. What are you guys' what's the thought process? Because as of right now, the two different things that are going on when it comes to the government shutdown, the sort of conversations that are being had are very interesting. We have both sides essentially telling something that is, not necessarily factually true, or rather there's some truth mixed with lies. And I think it's important to call this out, of course, whenever it's necessary, and just doing a little bit of a deeper dive into the sort of the CR bill, right? Everything that is, the language that is trying to be utilized here on both the left and the right, and how they're using it to, maybe create some, in a short word, propaganda on either side can be the case. So essentially, the talking points on the conservative side, what's true is the fact that some immigrants without permanent legal status, like DACA recipients or parolees under Biden humanitarian programs, would still qualify for subsidies under the under Democrats' position. Critics lump these groups together as illegals, though typically they have temporary lawful presence. So, however, it's misleading because the completely undocumented immigrants, no legal presence at all, are still barred by law from ACA subsidies. Democrats did not change that in this CR. Some claim that the Democrats are giving Obamacare to illegals. And this is something that's saying that people are saying this is false. It's more accurate to say Democrats want to keep ACA subsidies available for immigrants with temporary legal status. Now, the other side, of course, is what could be true is the Republican CR language would narrow subsidy eligibility that would affect some legally present immigrants and possibly even certain low-income U.S. residents, depending on how it interacts with the broader ACA subsidy rules. And so I guess the major talking point with both of these is healthcare. Just to summarize it for one, with one word, is healthcare. Okay, so this is the term that they're using. Now, whether the language, what that is, what it entails, let me know in the chat. I'd like to know more. So it says the Democrats see this as reducing access to affordable healthcare. And it says where it's misleading, of course, is the GOP's proposal don't remove subsidies across the board. It mainly targets immigration-related eligibility. Saying Republicans are broadly taking away health care from working families is exaggerated, quite exaggerated. They're saying to stop subsidies for some immigrant groups, not eliminate subsidies for all. Now, I do want to bring out maybe a video or two. Let's see. This is going to be... See if we can find this really quick. This is AOC and Bernie Sanders talking about the matter because, they are quite they're always in the news. So again, I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on this matter. What you guys think on this, and exactly what exactly is going down. So let's bring you over to Bernie Sanders here with walking with AOC. He happened to walk in to a friend on the streets of where? On the streets of where? Let me tell you. This is on the streets of D.C., Washington, D.C. And they could only be walking the streets like this because why? They cleaned up the streets. So otherwise, in no other circumstances would you see this happening at on a natural, I don't know, whenever this was posted 2 days ago. So let's get a little bit of what they have to say. And let's speed this up a little bit because they're... we don't want to spend too much time with this nonsense.
I was walking here in Washington, D.C., and who did I bump into? One of my favorite members of the United States Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
And one of my favorite senators.
All right. Anyhow, as everybody knows, we are now in a government shutdown. Republicans are attacking Alexandria, attacking me. Why didn't you vote for this clean CR to keep the government open?
Well, there's nothing clean about it. This is one of the dirtiest tricks that is being pulled on the American people right now.
First of all, this is not one of the most dirtiest tricks being pulled on the American people right now. Most certainly, this is something of a phrase that is absolutely false because of the fact of the terrible way that they ran our country the last 4 years. Now, some would argue and they would say, well, you know what? Trump's not necessarily doing better. Look at the tariffs. Look at this and that. Look at the grocery prices are still high. Whatever the case is, we can have our differences in opinions. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. Somebody says, this is Bakanon, says, if Republican admin gets their way, healthcare premiums would triple. I've heard it said double. Right. So triple, I haven't heard that word triple, but I've heard double. Now, if the language is being now exaggerated to triple, then we've got a little bit of a problem here because they're not being consistent in what they're communicating. However, the conservatives seem to be a little bit more consistent than that. So if that's the case, I don't know. I haven't heard that thus far. So it's okay. Don't recommend channel. Another blind creator. See ya, Michelle. Thanks for joining me. But otherwise, I'll see you around.
Starting today, October 1st, and throughout the rest of the month, Americans across this country are going to start getting notifications that their insurance premiums are up to doubling. We're talking about...
Say that again.
Your monthly insurance premiums are going to double for millions of people across the country.
At a time.
So that's why I said double. This is what they say. They're saying double. So triple. I'm not sure where that language is coming from. AOC, who's in the thick of all this, she's a congresswoman, so she's saying double. So this is her language.
And we're already paying, by far, the highest prices in the world for healthcare at a time when people can't afford it right now. So what happens?
That means
Now, a lot of what this mindset too is, and I'm going to keep stopping this to just continue to just comment as much as I can. Of course, this is Bernie Sanders' YouTube account, so he could most certainly try to claim whatever he wants to claim on this video as far as monetization goes. So I need to make sure that I'm commenting as best as I can. So somebody says it will also push younger people who bolster the healthcare system, who are less likely to need that help to drop healthcare due to increased costs, shifting the burden onto the older folks who need it but can't afford it. Now, I would say that the older folks probably aren't the ones that are going to be struggling. It's going to be the younger folks because of the fact that they are able to. We've seen in this economy of the Biden economy and what they did for the as far as the older generation. The younger generation can't even afford things like rent, car payments, can't afford none of this stuff. I can tell you this, like just the amount of times that I've heard this, the amount of times experienced this is absolutely wild I don't know about that statement. Maybe you think there's some other reason as to why the elderly couldn't afford this, but I'd most certainly bet that they'd be able to afford this more than the younger folks because of the fact that there's just nothing going in favor for the millennials, Gen Z group of people. We've seen this happen time and time again. They get richer, the older folk get richer, we get poorer. Make sense? Says, who cares about about old criminals? They did too much damage anyways. Well, we still want to care for people. We don't want to just, let them off the plank per se. We want to make sure that we care for all people and how this is done. We don't, what exactly is this going to benefit, raising premiums? I mean, we have some of the, I don't know, maybe the highest premiums. Of course, other countries providing free healthcare, and people are saying, why don't we just adopt free healthcare for America? Well, look, somebody's going to pay for it somehow. It's not just going to be free. It's not even free. The word free is just a nice little term that they like to sprinkle in there. Free healthcare. Somebody still pays for it. The people still pay for it. Welcome, Dead Man. Thanks so much for being here. Says that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe I can explain something a little bit better for you. I'm not sure how that might be, but says, it will hurt young people as well, but there are groups of old people who are struggling. Man, yeah, I'm sure there is. I'm not saying every person who is older of the what is the boomer age or whatever the case may be. I think it's boomer, right? After millennial, I could be wrong. Or what is it? Somebody correct me in the chat. My brain is misfiring here. So I'm sure that some could be struggling. That's very possible. It's not impossible. So if somebody says that's a nihilist take, that doesn't address anything, America. Yeah, that's kind of my point about that. So let's continue on here.
people getting bankrupt over chemotherapy,
Gen X.
people going to the pharmacy and not being able to get
Could
their
be right.
insulin. And frankly, it means a lot of Americans are going to be in danger. And Republicans want us to rubber stamp that. So what are we going to say to that, Bernie?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not only be in danger. Let's be clear. And it doesn't make me happy to have to say this, but there have been studies out there that when you combine doubling premiums for the ACA and then throwing 15 million people off of Medicaid and the ACA, the result is, according to studies at Yale and the University of Pennsylvania, 50,000 low-income, working-class Americans will die every single year. All right? If you don't have the money to go to a doctor and you're sick, you die. And that's what we're looking at. That's what this clean bill is about.
And so Republicans want us to rubber stamp that, and we're saying no. We need to stand up for the American people. We need to stand up for our healthcare system. And if they want our votes, they need to make sure that we're protecting every American and making sure that we can do what we can to continue to make healthcare accessible, affordable, as we work to make it a human right for all.
Right. So let me just back that up. Remember, right now, our healthcare system...
Now, somebody said, look at the population. Canada has population of California, and their healthcare wait times are awful. Even UK free healthcare sucks, and they got less population than us. It'll be wild. Yeah, you know what? You're actually true in that statement. There was a YouTuber that I was watching by the name of, what's his name? And he's not even somebody that deals in politics. This was just one of his videos that he was doing because he was taking his wife to a maternity or prenatal visit with their obstetrics gynecologist, and essentially they were saying that they had to wait an exorbitant amount of time because it's free healthcare. So it's not, he was complaining about it. So people that like this idea of free healthcare might not be the best idea, considering the long wait times that we already have now is terrible. I mean, could you imagine even longer than that? Typically, what a lot of people say is that it's not even worth it to go to the emergency anymore, because ultimately, by the time you're out of it, you're already feeling better. By the time you get a room, actually, you're already feeling better. Now they put priority to specific people, and even then, just a little personal story: taking my kid to a pediatric, asking if we should go to a pediatrics emergency. They said you'd probably be better just not doing that. And because by the time you get there, I mean, there's only one person working all these patients here, one doctor. And so, yeah, so it's just gotten bad. How we can fix that, I don't know. Maybe you guys can provide some alternatives there. It says they are perfect together. They're absolutely, their messaging, their charming personality, they are truly a great match. Them. It says the Democratic parties are much better place having them as members. It says it's a realistic perspective outlook, and people don't want to be honest about it. Eugene, yes. It says none of the countries with universal healthcare would give up theirs for the U.S. situation. Well, it's not like they can reverse that and go back to it and go back to something of more of a, what would you call it? Private healthcare or premiums that you would pay for as opposed to free healthcare. And so it would be a lot harder to probably go back to that and implement that. Who knows? Who knows? Dude, you're so naive. Look, this is why I'm reading the comments so that I can get a better idea. So this is none of the countries with universal health. Oh, I already read that. Well, we don't know. How would you know that definitively? I mean, are there leaders? Are there people talking about this? Can you provide some evidence so that I can know that this is actually something that maybe works? Who knows? We know that something like universal basic income, this is kind of where the idea comes from. I wouldn't say this is where the idea stems from, but it's very similar to the universal basic income, where everybody gets the same income regardless of your status, how rich you are, or you wouldn't even be rich because everybody receiving the same type of income. And it wouldn't be good for society. It wouldn't be good for the economy to grow. And this is, of course, what socialism does. And the sort of core of Marxism wants to implement within a society. And this is just not something this is, of course, what the globalists want to implement. And so, again, open to having my mind changed about. It says, okay, but in our current privatized system, people are scared to even go to the hospital or emergency room due to a bill. Absolutely. I 100% agree. So many people that I've talked to avoid this in the first place, avoid going to the emergency room because they don't want a bill, right? I totally understand that. I get where you're coming from. There are many people who don't want to do that. However, we all need healthcare. We all need to go to the doctors and make sure that we're good. Most of us who are healthy, that's the thing about living in a healthy, lifestyle. It'll help us stay away from the doctors as best as possible. Now, for some, it's not the case. They cannot live in that healthy lifestyle, and for whatever the reason. There's many reasons. I'm not just trying to narrow this down or put a generalization upon everybody. So it says healthcare here will cost so much next year, no one will be able to afford it. Well, let's see if that's actually the case. If we get more money back in our pockets because of tariffs, because of lower grocery prices, and we're living in a better economy, of course, we're probably going to, that extra money going towards healthcare, maybe it will offset itself. Who knows? Obviously, we wouldn't want more health premiums. That's not the end goal. We want, of course, more affordable premiums, especially in the times that we're living in. So I can completely understand the credits being applied and being beneficial to those of low income or those who are on ACA subsidies. So I completely understand this. Says 90% of the people in the U.S. don't make over 100K. That's probably a right statistic. I don't have that in front of me. B, thank you. Welcome. Says, I got a friend that has citizenship from Canada, and moved there, and coming back after 10 years, they said healthcare sucks compared to the U.S. compared to Canada. So, I mean, I'll take their word. Yeah, that's the thing. Typically, when people are saying they love the ideas outside of the country, they never want to go and actually, they never actually want to go and live that when they're saying this other country's got it better because they have free healthcare or free education. They don't ever want to do that themselves and actually live there as a citizen. So good luck with your channel, but get better informed. I appreciate it. Thanks, Bakanan. I appreciate your input or your whatever, if you're willing to stay, willing to hear you out as well. So thanks so much for chatting. It says people who think we should all have free healthcare just need to go to Canada and ask them. So a lot of you are actually saying, look, hey, go to Canada. Go to Canada. Go to these other places that have free healthcare and let us know how it is. I mean, honestly, if it's better, then maybe we should move. Maybe we should have a better, Canada's got this whole weird thing of medically assisted. I'm not going to say the word, but it starts with S, right? Ends in IDES, right? So we don't want, that's crazy that they even implemented this. They have this ongoing campaign to still, I actually don't even know if this has been, removed for people to have medically assisted, gosh, I don't even know another word. Maybe somebody can give me a better term for that. You guys can help me on the chat. So there's a whole commercial about it. Absolutely morbid. There's interviews about it. This is terrible. Terrible. It says, let's see here. Now your medical debt to go on your credit report too. Yeah, look, there's so much things that we probably just need to work out and get a better, get better policies into place. And will that happen? Is there any conversation about this? Has anybody heard anything about this regarding the conservative side? If they've talked about this, because there were some, I think I wouldn't say promises, maybe conversations. If they did make promises, then it was something regarding healthcare. This is possible. Who knows? I haven't heard anything recently, so I'm just saying that much. It says my partner has their most of their debt as medical debt, but they need those treatments like they recently broke out in hives all over their body, but delayed going to the doctor due to concerned costs. It says my brother has schizophrenia and extreme allergies, and without the current government healthcare programs, his medications would cost us over $1,000 a month. Look. These are very valid concerns. And this is not something that I'm just throwing away and saying, look, they're right. The left is right or the right, the right is right, whatever the case is. So otherwise somebody said the solution isn't privatization, man. So, even if we do free healthcare for all, now you're going to struggle and compete with others that have even either worse ailments than what your brother does. I'm not saying your brother doesn't have anything that's terrible or worse, because that seems pretty terrible. And I'm sorry that you're going through that. We can of course pray for your brother and pray for maybe the financial hardship that you're going through, if there is any regarding payments and all that. However, you might be competing against other people who have similar or worse, health problems. And it's going to be like, okay, now we need to prioritize who we need to treat here. That's not going to be good, as opposed to treating everybody individually in a manner that is most effective. So I don't know. It says we just gave Argentina $40 billion that would cover our citizens' healthcare. Yeah, we shouldn't be funding others. However, there is, I don't know. Is there a sort of contingency, or not a contingency, but is there something to give us back this money in profit? Is there something? I haven't heard anything about that. What did we give Argentina $40 billion for? I know they had some meetings recently with Javier and Trump. Did they talk about $40 billion being given away? I don't know. I know that we're still funding somewhat funding the Russia-Ukraine war. There's a lot of deals being brokered, of course, now in Israel and in this whole war going on, the Gaza exercise. So who knows where our money's going? It should be, of course, being focused on the American economy. And most certainly Trump has brought in, I want to say, what is it? The number that he gave, I think, was $17 trillion in pledges and in already, money that was already given up front. from Apple, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. Tariffs are taxes on U.S. companies. It says the premiums will go up if Democrats cave. Eat better, exercise, don't forget to floss. Well, that's always a plus. Premiums are going to triple. Now, in this video that I just played, they're saying premiums are going to double. So what's the language? Are they changing the language now? That's what I'm asking here. I said that earlier. So it says, who cares if you get a bill? You get that bill, don't pay. It goes to collections. You deny the debt and challenge the collection. It gets dropped and goes away. Both get a tax write-off. Boom, done. Hey, look, if that's true, Gio, I think you guys all just hacked the system. I don't know. My friend's grandma went to a doctor and she lived to 98. Oh, my friend's grandma never went to a doctor and she lived to 98. There was a story of a woman who drank Coke like every day and she lived like a really long life. So whether that's true, I don't know. But otherwise, that's good. She lived a long life, long, wonderful life. It says people really think stuff changes overnight. Astounding. Yeah, things don't change overnight. Even when these bills are passed, they still gradually, incrementally get implemented. And there's a date usually when you're looking at the CR bill. There's a date for this. It says you don't have to read all the chats. Skip the ones that you don't like. Well, I'm trying to get to everybody that I can to get everybody's perspective on this, and as much as I can. Let's see. Simply Google countries with the highest quality of life. The U.S. is far down the list. Of course, it's far down the list. We haven't had the most best economy in the last couple of years. So, of course, Trump is trying to. I think this is my opinion, but I think Trump is trying to fix a lot of these stuff and undo a lot of the bad policies from the Biden era. The auto pen era. These are things that we have to fix. We have to fix wars that shouldn't have we shouldn't have gotten involved, wars that wouldn't have happened. We don't know. He doesn't know the exact future if this was the case, but otherwise there is some instances where Ukraine and Russia didn't have to go to war because of the fact that they didn't want to, if we didn't move forward with trying to add Ukraine to a NATO nation as what was promised to Putin, that NATO wouldn't expand, NATO expansion rather, then we'd be probably we'd be jolly. No, we wouldn't have been funding the last 4 years, billions and billions of dollars going to Ukraine and him spending it on his, lifestyle. Somebody said private health insurance, worst idea ever. Andrew Page, what is your alternative? I'd like to know. Curious. So, okay, so this was Bernie Sanders' take. Let's take a look at the take of the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Let's see what she has to say regarding the government shutdown.
That's exactly right, Dana. In fact, I have the Democrat proposed continuing resolution right here, where you can read in the text a provision that would remove the provision that Republicans passed in President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill to ensure that illegal aliens in our country cannot receive Medicaid and taxpayer-funded health care benefits. That was happening under the Biden administrations, and the Democrats endorsed it, encouraged it, and vocally supported it. Joe Biden and the Democrats allowed millions and millions of illegal aliens into our country. They paroled them into the country. They gave them a Band-Aid called temporary protective status. They completely abused our immigration system. And then those illegal aliens were receiving the taxpayer-funded health care benefits of hardworking American taxpayers. That's why wait times at hospitals went through the roof under the Biden administration. And that's why the Trump administration and President Donald Trump immediately fixed this and changed it into law with the One Big Beautiful Bill. And now Democrats, rather than just passing a clean continuing resolution to keep the government funded, which is what the president and Republicans want, they submitted a continuing resolution that puts this poison pill back into law. That's what they want to do. And it's completely unacceptable. President Trump ran on the promise to end taxpayer-funded benefits going to illegal aliens, and tens of millions of Americans across the country voted him back to this beautiful White House House to implement that promise, and he did. And now Democrats want to undo it. And they are holding our country hostage. They are holding the American people hostage for this wildly unpopular proposal to give taxpayer-funded benefits to illegals. And now they're lying about it, and they know it.
On that
this begins to cut her off, but otherwise, so that's the side of the conservatives, and this is what the conversation that has been happening. Now, somebody's saying I'm looking to Caroline Levitt for let's see what did she say? Listening to Caroline Levitt for information. Again, I'm here showing you both sides. I showed Bernie Sanders and AOC. So if not Caroline Levitt, who else do you want me to put? She's a press secretary of the United States. She's giving the information. She's done the research, and this is exactly what is being put out there. This is information from the government. So a lot of the other people like Mike Johnson and some of the others that are literally saying the same message, it's literally posted all over the internet. So whether you agree with that or not, I always like to show both sides so that we can continue to talk and have conversations when it comes to, especially this government shutdown, which everybody is not. A lot of people are disagreeing and agreeing. So here, let's see this. Republicans can mock Democrats all they want, says, but the numbers don't lie. By a 17-point margin, Americans blame the GOP for the shutdown. And Americans overwhelmingly back ending ACA subsidies. 71% of WAPO, 78% of KFF poll says this has nothing to do with health care for illegal immigrants, and Trump knows it. Well, why they're using that language exactly, who knows? I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'm just bringing out both points, and whether you agree or disagree, this is what the narrative is being. This is what the narrative is, what they're saying as far as the narrative goes. It says Caroline, she's the reason for the word. Well, a lot of people don't like her, clearly, but otherwise, good stuff. Now get to the Epstein files. Something about the Epstein files that I did want to mention. What was it? There was a video I saw. It was kind of funny, kind of interesting, but some guy was saying, look, they keep recycling the same old photos of Trump and Epstein, saying, well, Trump's got to be on the Epstein files. And so, of course, they're saying that this person who pointed out that the media continues to cycle these same photos. They go over the flight logs of Epstein and Trump, and that reportedly is 8 flights total. And by the end of, I think it was 19. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull this up. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the delay. I hate doing and checking this stuff because then it gets all weird and nonsense. Just a lot of blank dead air, and it's terrible. So let's see here. Here we go. So when Jeffrey Epstein purchased his island in 1998. The flight logs that are posted that are public are, see if I can pull this up. Let's see if there's an image here. The last, oh boy, I can't even zoom in on that. See the last flight log here. Donald Trump, when's the year? I'm trying to figure out the year here. Let's see here. Where's Donald Trump? Donald Trump flight log. Anyway, I think the video was mentioning that it was a year prior. And so looking at the flight log here, but I'm not sure if this is exactly what he showed, so I don't remember. But it would have been the year prior that they had the 8 flight logs prior, and the year that they stopped flying together or meeting on whatever sort of business they were doing. Who knows? Essentially, Jeffrey Epstein had bought his island the year after. And so whether that's true, whether that's not true, I don't know. It was just a funny video because the guy's, I don't know, his character was very, I don't know. It was funny. Very funny. So anyway, it says Biden Hunter's laptop needs to be released. Is all he's intelligent missed it. as a Park Lake duck. Who's Ollie's intelligent? Who's Ollie? Is there an Ollie in this chat? Oh, Ollie. Yeah, it says if Epstein was alive, Trump would have new pics with Epstein. Well, let's see here. If he's not on the files, then what is the problem? We already know he is a terrible human. Well, if he's not on the files, a lot of what they're trying to do is possibly trying to protect the Hollywood elites. Now, whether the actual victims are coming up with this supposed list of their own, whether they do that or whether they don't, only time will tell. We really won't know until this sort of, I guess, comes into fruition. Now, whether they talk about the names and they talk, everybody needs to be held accountable for the crazy, terrible, disgusting acts that they did regarding this whole Epstein Island nonsense. And ultimately, if they're super powerful, they need to be taken down immediately because they have a lot of influence even still. And Hollywood, Hollywood's just gone so down the drain. It's just gotten bad. Movies are terrible. Everybody's going woke. Now, speaking of woke, Netflix is gone broke. Well, they haven't gone broke, but anyways, they're losing money. Even so much so that a lot of people are canceling their Netflix subscriptions. And so I'm curious as to see what they're, let's see if I can refresh this. So they're down just about $10 from yesterday is what I was reporting. And their stock, so their stock is sitting around 1,153. And so they're down 7.79% today. So down 9 points. And ultimately, look, they're still going to hold their game. I think they'll probably bounce back from this when everybody forgets about it. But otherwise, they're getting a lot of flack for being woke, for going woke. Well, I don't know. They've always been woke, I guess, but you go woke, you go broke. That's what their current stocks sitting at. So otherwise, the narrative that is being pushed about is transgenderism, pushing it on kids' television shows. And so ultimately, let's see if we can find some that aren't too, I don't know, maybe, hopefully we don't get dinged here by Instagram for playing some type of content, but this is something here. Let's go to this clip here. This might show us a little bit more of what Netflix is doing. So let's see here.
Bailey Del Vecchio. Is 32 Burn Hill Road still the current address?
Yeah.
Have you been giving him fluids? If he's dehydrated, we'll need to place an IV. Have him change into this. Well...
I hear someone's not feeling well. Let's take a look at the little man.
Can I please talk to you two outside?
Now, what would be even crazier is if, and this could probably easily be verifiable, you just look on IMDb and see if that person on the bed, whether it's a he or a she, a boy or a girl, if it's a girl actually playing a boy, then that is just so bad. That is just terrible. Because now they're forcing that, well, rather, maybe the parents said, hey, we can get an opportunity to get ourselves on the screen and let's just go ahead and do it. And now this girl, this poor little girl is now being put in the position to, of course, they can't do it without the parents' permission. So if she got booked for a job, her agent said, hey, look, we got a gig that not a lot of people want to do. However, this is, I don't know. This is just my thought, my hypothesis here, my theory that if this is actually a girl laying on the bed, and she's playing this boy who's, the character is a boy. I don't know. Have you guys seen this show? I really don't know. Does any of this make sense? Maybe I'm losing my mind here. But that what looks to be what appears to be a girl here. Oh, here we go. I've got the screenshot right there. So what looks to be a girl here, she's playing a boy. She's wearing girl clothes, and so treat the boy. The staff referred to treat the boy as a girl. So demands the staff to treat the boy as a girl, misgendering this child here. Now, if this is actually a female at birth playing a male or a boy, this is terrible. This is terrible in and of itself. Now we're not only that, we're just pushing this out to kids. And there's other cartoons, there's other instances, and Let's see. I don't know if there's any more regarding this, but otherwise, we can continue on here to just view a little bit more as she pulls the doctors aside.
I know that you guys are busy, but as you would see, if you looked at her and not her chart, Bailey is not a boy. And by treating her like one, you are completely ignoring who she is. You're making her feel insignificant and humiliated. And that's not gonna help her feel good or safe or calm. So, from here on out, please recognize her for who she is.
First of all, where's the parent in this whole situation? So I don't know who this character is. Maybe her friend. Who knows? I mean, it looks like maybe one of the parent comes in and is like gonna witness this moment of, this his I don't know, daughter or son's friend, and it's like, oh wow, this is a great inspirational moment.
And if at all possible, could you find me a non-blue hospital gown?
I apologize.
Non-blue hospital gown. Wow.
Dad.
Oh, so that's her dad. All right, well, it's not even the kid's parents, the one that's in the bed. That is terrible. Why does it matter what actors play what roles? House MD has covered this topic 10 years ago. Well, look, it's a child ultimately, and we're putting a child in that position. So we shouldn't. This is just now pushing this onto the kids and to the families that watch this show. It says this show is rated for children. Look, this is bad. Why is Hollywood dipping their toes in this? Because they've always been in this? Who knows? So, like I get not having HRT stuff to children or something. What's the I don't know what the acronym there, HRT. I'm not familiar with that. Call me ignorant. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Is if they call Trump a rate. I can't say that on YouTube. It says they aren't like they like less than 1% of the population. Are we having a separate chat? And I'm not really following this. We are not trying to indoctrinate your kids. Also, this, yeah. There's Cocomelon. Cocomelon is also portraying this as well on their shows about two dads. And I had that clip pulled up, but otherwise, I don't know. They could probably claim copyright. Who knows? So is this host trying to say she is trans? The kid in the bed, this kid is apparently a boy in the show. And this girl or boy, or I don't know, whatever she's identifying as in the show. I'm saying this is the storyline here. Just based on what we're seeing here, this character in the blue is defending her friend, this one that looks like a girl, looks like a legit female girl, born girl, not boy. Doesn't sound like a boy at this age. And she's saying, look, you're misgendering her. So you need to refer to her as a girl. She's correcting the doctors here. And the doctors are like, oh my goodness. So, I mean, this is just bad. Why put this on kids' TV shows if it's rated for kids? What about racist parents? Racist parents regarding what? A little bit out of context. Racism should not happen. Should not happen, yet it still does in some cases. Why does having two dads matter? Because this is, again, pushing the same idea. Because of the child in the show is a boy wearing a dress in the Cocomelon show. So feel free to live your life how you want. I'm not saying you, but feel free to live your life how you want or have your own platforms that promote this stuff. Fine, cool. The parents don't have to now put their kids in front of, my kids don't watch Cocomelon, by the way. So you imagine you're a parent who doesn't subscribe to this stuff and Cocomelon runs all day, you see these with children's YouTube channels. They'll literally play an hour long just montage of different Cocomelon episodes, hour long. Sometimes they're being live streamed. You got Bluey live streamed, you got SpongeBob live, you got all these different live streamed. If you have kids, then you know. If you don't have kids, then you don't know. But otherwise, even with Miss Rachel. Every now and again, she has this girl who starts talking about pronouns and her pronouns and all this weird stuff. And she pops in right at the middle of a teaching of a Miss Rachel show, starts singing her songs and all this stuff, and she starts talking about this nonsense. So imagine you're a parent who doesn't subscribe to any of this, and all of a sudden, here we go, an agenda being pushed onto your child. You got a little boy who's got two dads, and now the boy is wearing a dress. Obviously, a lot of people will say, well, you don't push your religion upon me. Don't push your Christianity upon me. Don't push any of that on me. Look, we're not doing any of that. We don't do any of that. But on the other side, they do. So you say, change the channel. Oh, the agony. It's not even about just changing the channel. Sure, change the channel. We change the channel all the time if something like that comes up. It's not a big deal. The big problem is that they're inserting this because maybe the parent is making food. Maybe the parent had to go use the restroom break. And now all of a sudden you're coming back to your child asking about this stuff. Now, my kids haven't asked about this in specific, right? But they're too young to be having to talk and have this conversation about why there's two dads and not a mom and a dad, because they clearly see the example with us. They see mom, they see dad. They don't see dad and dad. Okay. Now we're having to we don't even explain to them and say, look, you're too young for this. Or we just, we just avoid the conversation in total. Okay. Eventually the conversation will come, but right now they're too young. Their minds are too young to understand this stuff. Said, oh no, you might have to be a conservative, be a parent, you loser. Do you have kids, Red? You probably don't. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. But you don't understand. Maybe you do. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out your point of view. Said, oh no, you might have to be a conservation. Conservation? You might have to be I said conservative. Conservation. Be a parent, you loser. Well, looks like you're judging based on what? That deals with nothing with kids? So I don't know. It says, and your child asking questions, you don't like that? Questions are most certainly always welcomed. But you're going to start explaining sexual relations to your 5-year-old, to your 2-year-old? I mean, if you are, then you got a little something wrong there. I don't know. That's not right. We don't talk to our kids about this adult conversation that you need to have at least a little bit older, when they can start to begin to articulate the world a little bit more. Build a bridge, get over it. But you guys are crazy. You guys are absolutely crazy. He meant conversation. Yeah. Is that, did I read that wrong? Conversion? Did he write conversion? What did he say? Anyway, I could be wrong. Conversation. Anyway, conversation. Yes. We always have dude, our kids ask thousands upon thousands of questions a day. It's not even funny. So assumptions make an A out of you, and umptions. Well, it says change the channel, answer the questions. Is that so hard? A concerned world citizen. Are you a parent yourself? Because even changing the channel doesn't, you say change the channel, answer the question. Okay, so you're saying it's fine to talk to your kid about sexual relations with your child. Where's your boundary when you do talk to this and when you don't talk to your child? Where's the boundary? I'm honestly, genuinely curious. So you got 3 kids. Where was your boundary? What are their sort of absolutely fine? It says, if you don't want your kids watching something, don't put it in front of them. This is why we don't play Cocomelon in front of them. Obviously, duh. I'm not going to keep putting Cocomelon if there's this stuff here. Guys, it's like, is it going in one ear, coming out the other? I'm being honest here. Because yes, obviously, we wouldn't put something that is continuing to show this stuff. If it keeps coming up, then we're like, okay, done. He said, would you love your kids less if they were gay or trans? I would not love my kids less because they're my kids. However, I would still continue to tell them that their lifestyle is wrong according to the biblical reasons as to why we follow what we follow, why we believe what we believe, because it's not the natural order to be this or that. This is our belief. If they want to go on and do that, obviously it's not going to be correct. It's not going to be right. It's not going to be allowed inside the house so long as they live here. Everybody has the right to parent their child their own way. But then you got kids that are going mentally sick when you start to push this on at such a young age, something they shouldn't even be having to think about. This is ongoing. We've seen how many trans shooters that are continuing to infiltrate and continuing to shoot down churches, continuing to do so much stuff because of their mental health. This is what needs to be focused on, is their mental health. Not whether they're gender confused. We really start to get into some nasty territory when you're starting to say it's not, it's all about your gender. Maybe you're confused as to, how you, the Christian parents have gay and trans children. Sure. Happens all the time. It's probably the thing that the Christian doesn't want. But then the Christian then goes on to accept the child and starts to welcome his lifestyle, his or her lifestyle. That is completely opposite of what the Bible tells us to in the sense that you don't accept the lifestyle or the sin. You talk about it, you tell you do the correction about it, and whether they choose to want to continue to live their lifestyle, so be it. There's only so much you can do. And you pray for them, you love on them as best as you can. That doesn't mean you go and ostracize them, you go and cast them out. That's not the scriptures, that's not what the Bible's talking about. He said, I hope your kid is straight as a board for their sake, because geez, they aren't going to want to have a relationship with you if they are LGBT when they get older. Interesting. Well, I think they're going to come out, however, based on our teachings, based on how we communicate with them, based on how we talk to them about scripture, that they understand the fundamentals and they can run with that. Prepare them for the world, for the ugliness that is out there. I'm not putting any specific title on anything. When I say ugliness, I'm just saying the world is indeed ugly. He's dangerous for having morals. American Muscle, man. You're funny. I've seen you before on this chat, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah. But people, I'm bad for having my sort of, I don't know. I'm bad for having my opinions, my beliefs. It seems that way in the chat. I'm curious. I said, LOL, you people in the chat are mentally ill. Seriously. I don't know. It says bad parent, simple as more concerned with fairy tales than seeking real answers for their kids' complicated questions. Well, if there's such fairy tales, have you read the scriptures? Have you read the Bible? Where exactly is it talking about? Where is this fairy tale? When this is all historical documents. And by the way, YouTube punk, it's funny. I looked at your guy, Dr. Mike, what is his name? Lycona. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce his name, but his stance is clear. But it's important to note that his contention, the gospel's historical accuracy, is not even diminished by the fact that if his conclusions are true, in the sense that, and it's funny because the whole idea of the gospels being written later, much later, is, and the reason why the majority hold to this view is actually kind of funny. It's actually really funny. But anyway, so most historians agree on the crucifixion. This is according to Dr. Mike Lycona. But the historical accuracy, as I mentioned, is not diminished by differences, even of the differences in the Gospels. The Gospels use literary devices and compositional techniques in their time, which can lead to differences on how events are reported, but it does not necessarily make them less historically accurate. And those are according to him. Now, the funny thing is that when we talk about the Gospels being later, the majority hold to the view that they're later because this can only have been written after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Meaning that because what was written in the books, in the Gospels, that because the destruction is mentioned there, that this is why it's written after the fact. Now, the minority hold the view, and it's not always, the majority doesn't necessarily mean that this is definitive and this is actually true. The minority can also be true indeed. or the minority can be actually holding the factual truth rather than or the truth of this argument, and the minority actually could be wrong. And why I think it's actually quite dumb why they believe it's the truth as to why it was written after, because the destruction of the temple is in 70 AD, is because Jesus specifically prophesied of the destruction of the temple, and it was successfully completed. Now, not only that, did Jesus prophesy his death, burial, and resurrection. Talked about him being lifted up. Talked about as the serpent was lifted in the wilderness to the Israelites, so will the Son of Man be lifted up. This is so funny that you're holding to the views of these guys, Dr. Mike Licona, because of his understanding of coming to the conclusion that it's got to be written later because of the fact that the destruction of the temple is mentioned. It's so funny. So it's written decades after the death of Jesus, correct? The dating is about 35 to 60 AD, if I'm not mistaken, according to the understanding of these people. Had to be around that time. Now, Jesus would have been crucified 33 AD, 31 AD, around that time. So 35 to 65 around those years, were the Gospels, or rather some of the minority says that the Gospels were written 40 to 65 AD, around that timeline. The others hold to the view of being 65 and after because of the destruction of the temple. I don't think I called you a liar, man. I don't ever call people liar. I just say, no, that's not true, or that's not, I guess you can say that is essentially what I'm saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is let me try to correct my language here. Okay. So I'm not calling you a liar. Okay. What I needed to say was, let me do the research on it. So I retract if you think I called you a liar, I don't think I used those words directly. And if I did, I'm sorry. I'll give you that. I'm sorry if I said that's not true. These are just phrases that I like to say that's not true, in the sense that it's just something that it's just what do you call it? A type of phrase that I generally use, but doesn't necessarily mean I'm calling you a liar, but I get how it can sound that way. Okay. I'll concede to that. However, did the research, and this is actually a terrible understanding, because they believe that Jesus. So if the Islamic scriptures, which I don't believe they're inspired, however, they even give credibility to the Jewish and Christian scriptures. They actually say that it's historically accurate. They point to the fact that this is even the fact that they're mentioning that the Parakletos, the one that is to come, that will be, which essentially is Muhammad, right? In their scriptures, what they're saying, they're pointing to the passage in John, or what would be the passage in John where Jesus talks about the Parakletos coming and dwelling within the believer, even now so already dwells within you. Then that would mean that Muhammad would have to be already dwelling within these people prior to Muhammad's birth, 600 years prior to his birth. Now, how's that? Then that would make Jesus Allah. But they call Jesus a prophet. They call Jesus a prophet of God. Now, Jesus is a prophet. Most Jewish rabbis and the sages, they consider Jesus even a wise teacher, maybe even some a prophet. But what do prophets do? Prophets most certainly can prophesy. We see what happens in the Old Testament. They're prophets. Interesting. So thank you for my wife going in and just talking. She's the one that is with my kids the most. And the things that she's doing, she's absolutely wonderful. And the fact that she loves to answer their questions, she's teaching them, she's doing all that wonderful stuff. She has a better answer than I would probably on the matter. So that's a Pharisee. That's the host. Speaks of God's law, but routinely flouts it, transgresses it, judging others, blaspheming without a shadow of remorse. Okay, so where exactly? Look, I'm going to be clear. All of us in this chat, we're all sinners. We all need Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior. He's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. We need him in our life. We need to ask him. That's the most important question that we need to be asking is, who is Jesus? And that is something you need to be asking yourselves. I will be to say, the first one to say that I'm the biggest sinner here. Right? Paul tells us that he's the biggest sinner. So who's right here? Paul or me? Does Paul have more credibility? Maybe. He's done a lot more great things than probably I will ever do in my life. Possibly. However, you say speaks of God's law, but routinely flouts it, transgresses it, judging others, blaspheming without a shadow of remorse. Now, if you're talking about the scripture saying, do not judge. However, do you not read the rest of the scriptures? It says, lest you be judged as well. You be judged with the same measurement of judgment that you give others. Christ talking about the plank in the eye, but looking at the own plank. Of course, we need to be doing these on the account of the scripture taken in context to call out sin. So no, I'm not a sinner. God is perfect, so he cannot create imperfection. We are perfect. Wow. I'm sorry that you think that way. No, I am not a sinner. God is perfect, so he cannot create imperfection. We are perfect. That is terrible thinking. If the scriptures would be absolutely opposed to that kind of thinking, I'm so sorry that you think that way. We are all sinners. So Paul was hallucinating on LSD on his way to Damascus, sure. Because it tells us clearly that he was somebody who took psychedelics when Pharisees had no dealings with drugs. So he was a Sanhedrin, so they would have no dealings with any type of drugs, especially that. Now, LSD, the formulation that we currently know in modern day, wouldn't be around during that time. So obviously, it's probably a statement that is more joking than actually factual. Obviously, I'm sure you know that. Jesus is Lord. He is God. Amen. American Muscle, you're great. So American Muscle is the Father. American Muscle, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit is God. I'm sure he knows that. It says, then God is not perfect. So that's your argument, because God made us beings, and now we're not the perfect ones. God is the Holy One, and he has separated himself unto his creation. Nobody has seen God. Nobody has seen God at all. Nobody will. Scripture tells us this 100%. Nobody has seen God. Only the Son has. Now, Christ came in the likeness of flesh so that he can of course, redeem creation back to God. What kind of God does that? Comes into mortal flesh only to be crucified by his own creation. But as he says, I'm the one that has charge over my own life. This is what Jesus says, that I can take up my life and give it as I please. And I'm able to rise myself back. God, the Father, has given me this power. Only I have this power. Scripture is a compilation of fairy tales. Give me all the examples of what you think is fairy tales, when the evidence regarding many of the stories in the scriptures are actually based in historical findings, actual antiquities. It's literally Jerusalem. It's all there. God gave Lucifer free will, Lucifer became evil and chose his choices and become Satan from his Gosh, let me read that again. God gave Lucifer free will. Lucifer became evil from his choices and became Satan. Satan said, I will be like the Most High. I will set my throne above the clouds. So it's wild, because when we have, yes, angels are also given free will, but they're not created in the image of God. They cannot be saved because they're created directly in the presence of God. However, humanity is unique in the sense that they are created with the image of God, given free will, but also able to be redeemed. Isn't that interesting? God still gives them free will. However, they're created in a perfected state, but because of free will, they were given the ability to sin themselves. They were given this ability to. Yeah, he says, the Old Testament says, God is not a man. Read the rest of the passages. The rest of the passage that says, God is not a man that he should lie. Obviously, God is not a man that he should lie. When we leave out the context, God is not a man that he should lie. What is that implying? He's not a man that lies. God doesn't lie. Jesus didn't lie. How can God be perfect if he creates imperfection? He created perfection from the very beginning. It was the fact that God told them, do not eat from the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, but of every other tree you may eat of, except this tree that is in the midst of the garden. He gave him the ability to do so, left it there because that is God's image. God's image is having the characteristics or the ability of free will, creating us in his image, being able to discern good and evil. And so Satan comes along and says, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. However, that was true in the sense that, however, it would be now humanity would then begin to tell themselves what was good and what was evil. This is where we get the idea of the sort of common collective of saying, well, this is what's good and this is what's evil. Abortion is good and, I don't know, healthcare is evil. I don't know, anything. It says, surely some of you will taste death before he returns. They all tasted death. This could have been referring to John seeing what he saw in Revelation. He saw, literally was taken in the spirit and saw his return, saw what it looked like. This is what the book of Revelation writes down. Now, even the accounts of the disciples, how they died, some of this stuff is based on church, church tradition. So we don't actually know certainly how some of them died. Now, according to other sources, outside sources, they're saying this is how he died, and we're kind of looking at some of this stuff. John, we don't know how he died. We just know that he was sent to the island of Patmos. He had this incredible vision. At the end of it, literally, there's nothing that tells us how John died. How he died, who knows? The church traditions say that he was put into a boiling pot, I think of hot oil or just boiling pot, and he just didn't burn. But most certainly God had a plan for him to see his second coming. I thought this kid knows the Bible. I wasn't referring to that at all. Referring to what? It says one where Jesus said God reserves vengeance for the Pharisees and blasphemer punishment deemed too severe for murderers. And so where's that scripture that you're referencing there? So we can talk about it. It says God also lied when he told Adam and Eve they would die if they ate of the tree. They did die. They died. They died spiritually, first of all, but they would also die physically. Their bodies would physically die. But they were to live. So when they leave the garden, God kicks them out, and God says, let us put an angel with a flaming sword that goes every which way. Let's keep them from coming back into the garden lest they live forever, eating of the... Let's go to the passage really quick so we can actually get the word for word verbatim, so we're not jumping all over the place and not giving you any scriptures, not giving you any verses. This is when they get kicked out. Oh, look, we're already there, Genesis 3. So it says, he drove out man. Oh, let me go a little bit. It says, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing. So actually, let me go back to verse 22. Let me go to the start, okay? Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. Now, lest he reach out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So he would be living forever if he partook. He took also of the tree of life and ate the fruit of. He would be living forever in this sinful state, therefore not being able to be redeemed, but ultimately God's plan to have himself make this covenant. Now, God actually makes the covenant himself with Abraham, where God says, lay out these 12 pieces of we'd have to go to the scripture. 12 pieces of, I want to say 12 pieces of meat. Abraham stays up all night trying to keep the vultures away, trying to keep the crows. I think it's the crows or the vultures. And he's waiting for God so that God can then make the covenant with Abraham. However, God causes a deep sleep to fall upon Abraham, and it says God walks through the midst of these to make the covenant with himself. Interesting there. Now, we'd have to go in there to give more context, but it always says in verse 23, therefore the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man at the east of the Garden of Eden. He placed a cherubim, and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way of the tree of life, making sure that Adam and Eve would not go back to live forever in a sinful state so that they could then be redeemed. The host is about as Christian as Russian Orthodox. Not at all. The host is about as Christian as Russian Orthodox. Not at all. That doesn't even make sense. Maybe I'm missing some context. See, this kid is classic evangelical nationalist. There's nothing Christian to observe here. So what is so bad about being a nationalist? Loving, what do you mean by national? Let me get your definition of nationalist. Do I love my own country? Yes, I love my own country. Why wouldn't I love my own country? Obviously, if it was going bad, I probably wouldn't love my country. Or even then, if it was going bad, of course, I would want to fight for my country. Stand up for the things that are right, things that we're told to stand up. Now, James tells us to what says James, live peaceably. Let me see here. One of the scriptures that tells us to, how does it go? I have to think about it. He's an evangelical nationalist. Busted. So, you guys don't love your own country? Hey, look, you guys are, coming at me with the Bible being a fairy tale. Not once have I seen any type of scriptures except here. This is misinformation mayhem. It says Jesus said to be kind to immigrants. Matthew 25:35, Matthew 53, Matthew 5:43-44. Leviticus also talks about the sojourner. First of all, is where a lot of people don't understand that the Old Testament talks about this, but in a specific context. The Zionists in the Bible would also love their own country too. The prophets who are talking about the destruction of their own country, they said, hey, turn, repent. Because if they didn't follow the commands, of course, God said that they would be cursed. The real question is, why should we care about the Bible has to say? Do we have any outside evidence to support any of the miracle claims? What miracle claims are you talking about, essentially? Any of the miracles that were done during Jesus' ministry? Now remember, Josephus, being an outside account, is indeed a Jew. So if he had any claim to Jesus being more than just a wonderful teacher or a wonderful rabbi, maybe a prophet, he would be considered somebody who would be persecuted by the Roman government. He feared his life. He sought to gain life. He sought he sought his, what is the scripture, right? Seeks to lose his life will gain it. Those who seek to gain his life will lose it. That's unfortunate because when Jesus, being written about Jesus now, it's because Josephus mentions John the Baptist and Jesus, and all of a sudden, because he mentions this, now we need to be super critical as to see if this is actually what he actually wrote, or if this was indeed an interpolation by Christians later down the line. Because of course, this isn't something that Josephus would write. Josephus was a Jew. Josephus would have known these things. Now, did he want to associate himself with Christ? Absolutely not. It's unfortunate. Say God gives laws for lifelong slavery. Again, when you're looking at slavery in the Old Testament, we've gone over this plenty of times, and this just maybe it goes over some it goes over the head of some in this chat, maybe. But we go over the context so many times, and everybody just starts to get bored because I'm reading scripture, and it's like, yeah, you're gonna get bored because this is not something that you do. You don't read in context. You read the highlighted verses, but you don't read the surrounding context, surrounding everything from 25 on. It's a long chapter, but nobody wants to read the context of it. So they'll read let's read the highlighted verses. It says in 44 says, as for your male and female slaves whom you may have, you may buy male and female slaves from among the nations that are around you. You may also buy from among the strangers that sojourn with you, and their clans that are with you. You have been born into your hand or into your land. And it says, and they maybe, where am I at? Maybe and they may be your property. It says yours 44 through 46. You may bequeath them. Oh, what am I? Yeah, you may bequeath them into your sons after you inherit as possessions forever. You may make slaves of them, but over your brothers and the people of Israel you shall not rule one another ruthlessly. It says you may make slaves of them, but over your brothers, the people of Israel, you shall not rule one over another. So shall we go over the context? Should we go over? It says redemption of property. I guess we can start there. Let's see. We have to go all the way to the beginning. Is God outside the universe? Wait, does equally yoked support Israel? In what context? Historians say you're wrong. Regarding what, though? First of all, YouTube Monk, before I continue on here. Historians say I'm wrong regarding what? Read that context. So, let's go. It says, the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather its fruits. But in the 7th year, there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land. A Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest or gather the grapes of your undressed vine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you and for yourself and for your male and female slaves, and for your hired worker, and the sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle and the wild animals that are in your land. All its yields shall be for food. Now here we go. This is important because we're already talking about slaves here. Okay, let's stop here for a moment. Let me look at some of the comments. It says, do you support the current Israeli administration? In what context? Because I support Israel as a nation, that they have the sovereignty over their nation. They proved it during as soon as they were attacked, immediately upon becoming a nation, the day after, they went right into war. They proved to defend themselves. So the historians consider the biblical context as well as the context of the time and place. Yes, culture, of course, all this stuff. But people have opposing views. But you're saying majority, you're making a pretty loud statement there. So what's the majority? Is there a minority? Is there a majority here? And what are the contentions? Are they all saying what you want them to say or what you think they're saying? Or is there, what would you call, nuances to their arguments regarding slavery? Regarding slavery in the Old Testament. Got it. It's like their current leadership man, Netanyahu. Here's the political landscape right now. A lot of people are blaming Netanyahu for everything. They're blaming the Jews for everything. They're blaming the Jews for everything that is going on, like affecting U.S. politics. I'm not going to go so far as to say all that. Now, whether they have power in Hollywood, whether they have power in high places, sure. A lot of these people renounce their Judaism in the first place anyway. They don't like to come out as Jew. Adam Sandler's a Jew. Many others are Jews, and they don't come out as Jews, nor do they practice anything that is Jewish. They don't want anything to do or be associated with being a Jew. That's just the reality of it. People are afraid of that. Now, when it comes to certain actions, there's certain things, sure. Certain things that are done, conducted to keep Israel safe and secure. Now, will I agree with absolutely everything? Because this all leads generally into the free Palestine, the Gazans, the Palestinians. Look, nobody's going to, we're not agreeing here to genocide or anything like that. What people are calling it genocide. And it's funny because there's going to be some clips that I'm going to talk about when it comes to Charlie Kirk talking about the ethnic cleansing clip that he mentions in PBD podcast that everybody's going on about. Says Adam is 100% a true Jew and has never been afraid to show it. You are wrong. 100% true Jew. What do you mean exactly? 100% true Jew. Is he practicing the Judaism? Is he practicing Judaism? Is he doing all of the laws that he should be doing? Obviously, the movies that he does is not very Jewish. So he's not living like 100% Jew. So that's absolutely wrong because they wouldn't be doing or involving themselves in that type of world concerning what they do. Yes, Veritas, I will get back to it. Don't worry. Everybody doesn't like when I'm just reading for 5 to 10 whole minutes. People get bored and it's just that. So don't worry, we're going to get back to it. Here comes the evangelical nationalism watch. Here it comes, more moral equivalencies. So what's your moral standard, if I must ask a concerned world citizen? Just because somebody claims to be a Jew doesn't mean he's practicing Judaism as he should. Nobody likes Adam on the PBD podcast. Why? Who knows? So here we go. This is important. It says, you shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest because of the Sabbath, or gather the grapes of your undressed vine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land. The Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you, for yourself, for your male and female slaves, for your hired worker and your sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle, your wild animals that are in all the land of the field. So the common slavery that we're talking about, generally when people are talking of the modern day slavery, is completely opposite of what it's telling you just in this passage here. That the modern day slavery, they wouldn't be treated as equal. There was segregation. We don't have to go through the whole list here. Everybody will list it on their own. Why are 60% of the casualties in Gaza women and children? So if we're talking about the reporting from the UN, from Hamas, rather the numbers that the Gaza Health Ministry is giving to the UN, it's ran by Hamas. Hamas is known to lie. And for the most part, everybody in this chat seems to agree with the fact that Hamas. What does it matter to me? They are all still pursuing a cleansing. So Hamas, we'll talk about that in a moment. Hamas, it seems like everybody doesn't agree with Hamas, and they're all for the Palestinians. Cool. They're for the fact that Palestinians shouldn't be, there shouldn't be any genocide happening. Great, I'm all for that. Say great, but scroll up. We're talking about ethnic cleansing. Is that the what I'm ignoring? That I'm saying it doesn't matter to Charles? There's the video in the West Bank. What about in the West Bank? What am I missing in the West Bank? Now, the part of the deal, and this is something new that I heard just today that Nick Fuentes was talking about, that just in the last moment, Benjamin Netanyahu changed the deal just before it was all about to be signed. I don't know. I haven't heard of anything new. I haven't heard anything more than that, because Nick Fuentes went on this weird random rant about just nonsense. He didn't even explain himself. And this was part 1 of the video. So eventually he gets to it, and I couldn't find part 2. So it says no, that's not you. It says Israel isn't only pursuing genocide in Gaza, it's in the West Bank as well. So we'd have to look at the details. So are you voluntarily watching Nick Fuentes? No, he came up on my, actually I did voluntarily watch a interview with PBD and Nick Fuentes, and talking about why he is the way he is, which is terrible, absolutely terrible. The way he's he wants to basically preserve the white race, the classic picket fence, because there's this one place that he lived in, and it was like the perfect, like, time frozen of white picket fences, white families, white neighborhoods. And he wants to preserve that, essentially. That's where he started to grow in that sort of mindset, and sticking with that mindset. Doesn't agree with interracial marriage, which is dumb, all this stuff. And so ultimately, a lot of bad ideas. And so anyway, so that I watched voluntarily. Yes, that was on YouTube. Separately, on an X algorithm, I guess you would say, I don't watch anything about Nick Fuentes on X. And so we talk about Nick Fuentes mentioned the deal that they're trying to make with Gaza and the whole Arab nations, and then there's a last minute change. Who knows? I don't know. Get out the way, Jesus. Pro-Israel talking points need me. Wow. Because that's exactly what I'm doing, right? It says where Hamas isn't in power. And that's the West Bank. Yeah, Hamas isn't in power with the West Bank, but they're working with Hamas. This is the Palestinian Authority, guys. Ran by Mahmoud Abbas, which has literally the same mindset as Hamas. These Palestinian Authority police force are training like militant, very militant, being trained by who? Who was it? It was being trained by, there was a video that went out by, I want to say Iran, or no, Hezbollah forces. What did Hezbollah do? They attacked Israel. It says, it often comes off like you are, like I am what? You're just making some radical statements there, because that is not even true. Don't even go there. If you're talking about the fact that I'm I don't know what, like Nick Fuentes, definitely not. That is just wild, because then you're not even paying attention to anything on the stream, bro. And that is just terrible that you're even comparing me to that. No, I don't really watch Newsmax at all. So anyway, so it says Boss is not the same as Hamas at all. Then you don't watch any of the, have you even listened to any of the interviews of Mahmoud Abbas? Have you at all? I've edited a whole long clip of one of his, oh gosh, we just have to go back and look at it, because it's actually one of the top videos that let's see, I'll bring up the video so you guys can watch it on your own. Yeah, this might be, see if I can find this popular, this one. This might be the one here.
Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah. So you would have to go to this. This video is completely edited by me here. Jeez, that was loud. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, guys. This video was edited by me, and you can go through this. This is my old pastor who I used to work for. Did an extensive conversation of. Here we go. Extensive conversation of the Benjamin Netanyahu video.
West Israel, folks.
And let's go here. So this is a problem. So here he goes through the Jordan Peterson and Benjamin Netanyahu talking points, all this stuff, a whole 46 long minute. Then around the the 30th minute mark, we start talking about Mahmoud Abbas and the things that he says regarding this. And he's talking, look, my pastor knows Arabic. It's his second, it might be first language. I can't remember what he says. Second, JR, is this real or AI? This is real. I don't know how you guys can't tell what's reality and AI apart.
I need to clarify something. That the European Jews are not Semitic. They're not Semites. They have nothing to do with Semitism. This began in 900 AD.
Now he goes on and on about this, but there's more videos, but you can look at this. This is called, This Is What Really Happened in Israel. You can go through, look at the context, look at the video, watch it in full. This is great. This is absolutely great. I think think you guys should go and watch that. So otherwise, so who is providing the translation? That is my pastor, Pastor James Cadiz. Oh, you can't see him in the video. So let's see if I can move that over. That's James Cadiz, my pastor that you would have seen on this instance here.
Together so that you understand it, because so many people look at the Palestinian Authority and they make the Palestinian Authority look so wonderful and so well-meaning, and these are people that just want the best for Arabs. They don't. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video for you, and this is a little risky, by the way. I just want you to understand that, because on YouTube, to play a video like this, I have to be very careful how I translate this. But I am going to play a video of Mahmoud Abbas speaking a couple of weeks ago. And in this video, I am going to translate for you what he says from Arabic to English. I'm going to just do the best that I can do to translate it. I may get a few things off, but I'm pretty good at this. And I want you to listen to the extent of what he says. We're talking about 7 minutes here. This is
during the October the 7th, when that happened. They discussed all this in the leading up to, or the days, not leading up to, the days after. He discussed this with a man, David Tall, which is an IDF tank commander. And they go through all of this. They talk about the weird anomalies, such as them having intel that they would possibly be conducting something like this. They talk about the fact that so much, you just have to go back to around that time, and they talk about it super extensively. I highly recommend that you go and you get his understanding about all this stuff. Now, of course, my pastor is pro-Israel. He is talking to many of the Israeli delegates, top leaders in Israel, had them on his podcast, and has gone through extensively. He's even talked to and had a conversation with his brother, which I edited, which is, what's his brother's name? I forget. Anyway, so he had an extensive conversation with Bibi's brother. And so he's got all this content, trying to figure all this stuff out, talking about this stuff. And he's one of the foremost experts understanding this region. Yeah. Why wouldn't he be? He's for Israel. He loves the Bible. If you don't know the Bible, you don't know, or if you claim to be a Christian, you don't claim to support Israel or to be a Zionist, then you don't know your scripture. And even then, I think he does a breakdown as to the whole Tucker Carlson nonsense. You can hear his point of view on Israel. when talking about Genesis 12:3, if you really want to. Jesus was a Zionist. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff that we're jumping all over the place here. Jumping all over the place because we want to read the comments. That's my fault. All right, so here we go. You shall count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years, so that time from the 7 weeks of years shall give you 49 years. Then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement, you shall sound the trumpet throughout all your land, and you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land and all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, each of you shall return to his clan. That 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather the grapes from the undressed vines, for it is a jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You may eat of the produce of the field. Sorry, just texting a moment. Okay, so getting back says, in the year of the Jubilee, each of you shall return to his property. And if you make a sale to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. You shall pay your neighbor according to the number of years after the Jubilee. And he shall sell to you according to the number of years for crops. If the years are many, you shall increase the price. And if the years are few, you shall reduce the price, for it is the number of the crops that he is selling to you. You shall not wrong one another. You shall fear God, fear your God, for I am the Lord your God. Therefore, you shall do my statutes and keep my rules and perform them, and then you will dwell in the land securely. The land will yield its fruit, and you will eat of your fill and dwell in it securely. And if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year, if we may not sow or gather in our own crop? I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, so that it will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. Then you will sow in the 80th year, and you will be eating some of the old crop. You shall eat the old crop until the ninth year, when its crop arrives. The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, and the land, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me. This is important. God is saying that the Israelites are strangers and sojourners with me, and says, and in all the country you possess, you shall allow a redemption of the land. It says, if your brother becomes poor and sells his part of his property, then his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother has sold. If a man has no one to redeem it, then himself becomes prosperous and finds sufficient means to redeem it. Let him calculate the years since he sold it and pay back the balance to the man to whom he sold it, and then return his property. But if he does not have sufficient means to recover it, then what he sold shall remain in the hand of the buyer until the year of Jubilee. It says, in the year in the Jubilee it shall be released, and it shall return to his property. If a man sells a dwelling house in a walled city, he may redeem it within a year of its sale. For a full year he shall have the right of redemption. It says, if it is not redeemed within a full year, then the house in the walled city shall belong in perpetuity to the buyer throughout his generations. It shall not be released in the Jubilee, but the houses of the villages that have no walls around them shall be classified with the fields of the land. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released in the Jubilee. As for the cities of the Levites, and make sure I'm not. Okay, so it says, in the cities of the Levites may redeem at any time the house of in the cities they possess. And if one of the Levites exercises right of redemption, then the house has to be the house that was sold in the city they possess shall be released in the Jubilee, for the house in the cities of the Levites are their possession among the people of Israel, but the fields of pasture land belong to their cities, may not be sold, for that is their possession forever. It says, if your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner. That's key right there. Let's not forget that. You shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner, and he shall live with you. Take no interest from him or profit, but fear your God, that your brother may live beside you. You shall not lend him your money at interest, nor give him your food for profit. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan, which of course would be that area in Philistia. We talked about this before. This is the area of the coastal region in Gaza, that area, branching out into the rest of Israel, what would be the rest of Israel. However, it's not even the complete land that they are supposed to be given. So is anybody really listening to this? No, nobody is, because nobody wants to listen to it, honestly. We talk about reading context, and even the guy that's here, I don't even think he's here anymore. I wanted to read this. Are you doing Christian Zionism? What is the purpose of all this? Because somebody asked for the context, and the person who asked for the context is not even here. And it's just all a troll, honestly. I don't even know why I'm falling for it, I guess you would say, because they say, hey, look, read the context, and then what happens? Reading the context leaves the chat. Doesn't even say anything. Maybe he's listening. Who knows? But everybody's having their own side conversation. So it's like, well, if anybody's going to listen, if nobody's going to listen, then why go over it? You don't want to hear this. You don't want to hear the context. You're afraid of getting proved wrong. I don't know. So we were talking about slavery. Did the Bible endorse slavery? Yes or no? The Bible gave provision for slavery. Trying to steal. It says, are you atheist, citizen? Anyway, it says, I've been listening the whole time. If you're referring, no, I'm not referring to you. I'm referring to the other person, whoever it was at the top. There's so many chats that went by. It's like, I don't even know. But they were saying, I think it was, started with the V. So look, so here's the problem with your question. You say, is it a yes or is it a no? So what type of slavery are you talking about here? Because there's two different slaveries that we have in the Old Testament and modern day slavery. Slavery was a means to get yourself or keep yourself out of essentially going broke. V for Vendetta. What was the guy's name? It was it was something. I forget what it was. So making provisions for slavery, again, the Bible is descriptive, not prescriptive. Because they were people who were sojourners in the land of Egypt, not only were they sojourners, they were also slaves in the land of Egypt. So God is, of course, taking this nation that was involved in slavery for so long. And what happens? They indeed, one sec. They indeed